the paradox of niceness. Everyone loves the nice guy, the one who smiles, listens, and never seems to carry an edge. They're the people you trust instantly, the ones who make you feel safe. But what if that sense of safety is exactly what makes them so dangerous? Human nature has a dark symmetry. The more someone appears harmless, the less we guard ourselves. And that blind trust creates the perfect conditions for control. This is the paradox of niceness. What looks pure and kind can conceal some of the most strategic, calculating minds. When Niccolò Machiavelli wrote The Prince in the 16th century, he was condemned for what many saw as cynicism. But Machiavelli wasn't cynical. He was realistic. He understood that behind every act of virtue, there often lurks a calculation of gain. He famously wrote that a leader must appear all mercy, all faith, all honesty, all humanity, all religion, but only appear so. He knew that appearing nice was a weapon sharper than any sword, and centuries later, that idea holds truer than ever. We live in a culture obsessed with likability. Social media rewards smiles, brands sell authentic kindness, and careers are built on charm. But behind many of those soft-spoken, easygoing faces is a subtle mastery of power dynamics. Niceness has become camouflage, a way to disarm, manipulate, and rise. The people who seem least threatening often understand, consciously or not, that charm is control in disguise. 1. The hidden power in politeness. Niceness is not weakness, it's strategy. When someone presents as endlessly patient, agreeable, and considerate, they gain something far more powerful than dominance. They gain influence. Machiavelli understood that brute force could only take a ruler so far. The real mastery came from shaping perception. They use empathy and understanding as a social currency, buying access to people's emotions and decisions without ever showing their hand. In relationships, workplaces, and politics, niceness creates leverage. Think of the coworker who never argues, but always gets their way. The neighbor who never raises their voice, but somehow has everyone tiptoeing around their needs. This kind of person doesn't win by confrontation, they win by consent. People comply because they want to. Machiavelli would call that the highest form of control, to command without appearing to command. The polite person, then, becomes dangerous, not because of aggression, but because of influence without friction. Even in history, some of the most quietly dangerous figures wore the mask of charm. Take leaders who projected benevolence while consolidating immense power. They succeeded because they made people believe their interests were aligned. The nice person's advantage is that no one expects betrayal. They can maneuver through social systems unseen, gathering information, shaping narratives, and positioning themselves, all while maintaining a spotless reputation. Their disarming softness becomes their strongest armor. 2. Machiavelli's lens, the mask and the mind. Machiavelli's philosophy revolves around a single, unsettling truth. People are driven by self-interest, even when they pretend otherwise. The appearance of goodness, he argued, is more valuable than goodness itself. This isn't an endorsement of cruelty, it's a recognition of how power functions. The nicest people, knowingly or not, embody this principle. They wear a mask of warmth and virtue, but underneath lies an acute awareness of how that image can be used to gain advantage. Machiavelli would likely say that the nice person is the most Machiavellian of all. While others chase power through open displays of strength, the nice one plays a subtler game, the game of perception. They understand that being feared invites rebellion, but being liked invites compliance. The smile replaces the sword. In modern society, where social approval is capital, niceness becomes the most effective form of soft power. People drop their defenses, share secrets, and give opportunities, all in the presence of someone they think is safe. The danger, then, is not that nice people are evil. It's that they are effective. Their charm creates illusions that distort judgment. Machiavelli warned rulers never to rely on appearances, yet humanity still does. The person who seems too nice might not be plotting anything sinister, but the potential is always there, because when someone has mastered the art of perception, they can control what others see. And once you control perception, you control everything else. 3. The psychology of niceness. At its core, niceness isn't just about kindness, it's about survival. From an early age, many people learn that being agreeable keeps them safe. When you're nice, people like you. When they like you, they don't attack you. This social conditioning creates a deep instinct to please, but beneath that instinct lies a powerful behavioral tool. Niceness becomes a learned form of self-defense that gradually turns into a mechanism of influence. People who master it realize that kindness isn't just moral, it's tactical. Psychologists call this the social lubricant effect. Niceness reduces tension, builds trust, and opens doors. But over time, habitual niceness can also morph into manipulation. Those who have learned that conflict leads to rejection often overdevelop their agreeableness, weaponizing it to maintain control of their environment. They give compliments that soften resistance, take responsibility to win loyalty, and offer empathy to extract vulnerability. The more emotionally intelligent they are, the more dangerous they become, because emotional awareness gives them precision in influence. Machiavelli's principle of adaptability fits perfectly here. In The Prince, he argued that a ruler must know well how to disguise this characteristic and be a great pretender and dissembler. In other words, people survive by becoming what others need them to be. The nice person embodies this to perfection. They adjust their tone, mimic emotions, and mirror values, all to maintain harmony, but in doing so, they gain psychological leverage. Their niceness becomes the perfect disguise for power. 4. Emotional manipulation as power. The most dangerous kind of manipulation doesn't feel like manipulation at all. It feels like care. When a nice person uses empathy to subtly guide another's feelings or choices, it doesn't register as control. It registers as understanding. Machiavelli would have recognized this instantly. Men are won more by the things they see than those they feel. When someone feels seen, they surrender willingly, and that surrender is where power begins. Emotionally intelligent manipulators understand that kindness builds dependency. If they comfort you in pain, you begin to associate their presence with relief. If they always agree with you, you start to crave their validation. Slowly, their approval becomes a kind of emotional currency, and you'll do almost anything not to lose it. This isn't always malicious, sometimes it's subconscious. But the result is the same: control through care. What makes it dangerous is that you never see it coming. In workplaces, relationships, or even politics, this dynamic repeats endlessly. The nice leader who listens to everyone but acts in their own interest. The friend who always supports you but subtly shapes your decisions. The partner whose calm demeanor hides emotional leverage. They operate on Machiavelli's highest principle of power, to rule through consent rather than coercion. They make others choose submission, and that's the most efficient form of dominance there is. 5. The mask slipping, when niceness turns dangerous. Every mask eventually cracks. For some, the act of being endlessly nice becomes unbearable. The pressure to maintain that image erodes authenticity. When their true motives surface, the contrast between appearance and reality shocks everyone around them. This is when niceness turns openly dangerous, when the mask drops and the intent is revealed. What was once warmth now feels calculated, What was once empathy now feels like surveillance. When a nice person's motives are exposed, it often provokes disbelief. People don't want to accept that someone gentle could be manipulative. But Machiavelli warned of this centuries ago. The vulgar crowd always is taken by appearances. We assume that cruelty wears a scowl, and that kindness wears a smile, when in truth, both can wear the same face. The danger lies not in the act of being nice, but in the world's blind faith in appearances. At that point, niceness becomes a kind of weaponized illusion, one that can devastate relationships, careers, and trust. The betrayal cuts deeper because it feels personal. We expect harm from enemies, not from friends. And that's why the nicest people can be the most dangerous. They operate from within the circle of trust, not outside it. Once they decide to exploit that trust, whether consciously or not, the damage they inflict is total, because no one ever saw it coming. 6. The social currency of kindness. In every society, certain behaviors hold value, and in today's world, kindness is gold. Social media, workplaces, and relationships all run on reputation. And niceness is the currency that buys acceptance, visibility, and opportunity. Being perceived as nice signals safety and reliability, two traits people instinctively trust. But like all currencies, it can be inflated or counterfeited. Not all kindness is authentic, some of it is investment, a down payment for future advantage. The nice person who always compliments others might not just be spreading positivity, they might be cultivating alliances. Every "you're so talented and I'm here for you" can quietly build emotional debt. Over time, that debt becomes influence. This is not to say that kindness should be distrusted, but rather that kindness often carries strategic weight. The most socially successful individuals understand this intuitively. Being liked gives them power that being feared never could. Machiavelli himself wrote that a wise ruler should seek to be feared rather than loved, unless he could manage both. The modern nice person manages both perfectly. They command respect through charm. We live in what could be called the economy of perception. Niceness sells. It's rewarded with followers, partnerships, promotions, and forgiveness. But it also manipulates public opinion. Politicians craft humble images. CEOs pose as relatable leaders, influencers weaponize authenticity. The performance of niceness isn't about morality, it's about optics. And as Machiavelli would say, optics are everything. The perception of virtue, even when false, is more useful than virtue itself. 7. Niceness in the modern power game. In modern workplaces and politics, niceness has evolved into a competitive strategy. Corporate cultures praise collaboration, empathy, and communication, all good things on the surface. But those who understand the unspoken rules of this system know that these traits can be exploited. A nice employee who appears cooperative can rise faster than a blunt truth-teller. A nice politician who seems approachable can sway more votes than one who is merely competent. The appearance of goodness is often more valuable than actual effectiveness. This dynamic creates a paradox. People begin performing niceness rather than embodying it. They master tone, timing, and empathy as social tools, learning exactly when to smile, when to nod, and when to stay silent. It's an advanced form of image management, and it works because humans are wired to respond emotionally before logically. A warm demeanor lowers defenses faster than data or logic ever could. That's why entire PR industries exist to soften reputations. They rely on Machiavelli's ancient wisdom that men judge more by the eyes than by the hands. Consider how leaders and public figures shape their personas. The politician who publicly hugs children, the CEO who tweets about mental health, the influencer who cries on camera. All of these gestures craft a story of relatability. And yet, behind these curated performances, there's often calculated branding. Niceness becomes a corporate tactic, a political strategy, a personal marketing tool. It's not inherently evil, but it is undeniably powerful. The modern world rewards those who master it and punishes those who don't play the game. 8. Machiavellian lessons: how to see through the smile. So how do we see through niceness? How do we tell the genuine from the strategic? Machiavelli offers the blueprint. His philosophy wasn't meant to make people cruel. It was meant to make them aware. He taught that power hides in perception, and that those who fail to read appearances will always be ruled by them. To survive among the nice, one must think like Machiavelli, distrust appearances, observe patterns, and look at outcomes instead of words. A truly kind person shows consistency between intention and result. A manipulative one leaves a trail of advantage in their wake. Watch how someone's niceness functions. Does it uplift others, or does it subtly consolidate power? Do they stay kind when there's nothing to gain? Do they show humility even when unseen? Machiavelli would argue that true virtue can afford transparency, while false virtue demands performance. The mask requires constant maintenance. Authenticity doesn't. The lesson isn't to become suspicious of every smiling face. It's to reclaim awareness in a world where kindness can be both shield and sword. Understanding the Machiavellian mechanics of niceness doesn't make you cynical. It makes you strategic. You start seeing behavior not just for what it seems, but for what it serves. And once you learn to see through the smile, you stop being controlled by it. 9. When niceness meets morality, the ethical divide. Not all niceness is deception. Sometimes, kindness truly comes from empathy and selflessness. But that's what makes the topic so complex. Niceness operates on a moral spectrum. On one end are people who use kindness to heal. On the other are those who use it to control. Both understand human emotion deeply, but one seeks connection, while the other seeks advantage. The difference lies not in what they do, but in why they do it. Machiavelli never claimed morality was irrelevant. He just believed it was secondary to power. In The Prince, he advised leaders to learn how not to be good when goodness became a liability. This wasn't a rejection of ethics. It was an admission that survival sometimes demands strategy. The modern nice manipulator operates on this same principle, often justifying control as protection or diplomacy. They tell themselves that withholding truth or steering others for their own good is still a kind act. But that's where the moral danger lies. When niceness becomes a mask for control, it erases consent. True morality demands transparency, the courage to be kind without expecting return, to be honest even when it risks harmony. Genuine kindness requires strength, not performance. The ethically grounded person can still be strategic, but their strategy serves integrity rather than manipulation. Machiavelli might argue that such people are rare, but they exist, and they prove that power and virtue don't have to be enemies. The challenge is to recognize where your own niceness stands on that spectrum. Are you kind to connect, or kind to control? Conclusion: the power of awareness and the choice to be real. In the end, the nicest people can indeed be the most dangerous, not because they're monsters, but because they understand the subtle mechanics of human behavior. Niceness gives them access, influence, and invisibility, three of the most powerful tools anyone can possess. Machiavelli would admire them not for their morality, but for their mastery of perception. They understand the same truth he did, that power often hides behind virtue, and the most effective ruler, or manipulator, is the one who smiles while pulling the strings. But awareness changes everything. Once you learn to read niceness through a Machiavellian lens, You no longer take it at face value. You begin to question the motives behind warmth, the timing of empathy, the purpose behind praise. You stop assuming that kindness equals safety, and instead judge it by its outcomes. You start valuing authenticity over agreeableness, truth over comfort. This is not cynicism, it's clarity. It's the kind of clarity Machiavelli intended when he stripped away the illusions of power centuries ago. So the next time someone's niceness feels too perfect, pause, observe, question, and listen beyond the tone. The smile might be genuine, or it might be strategy. Either way, understanding the dynamic gives you power. In a world where image rules and perception shapes reality, awareness is the ultimate defense. Niceness isn't the enemy, blindness is. The most dangerous people are those who know how to weaponize kindness. The wisest, however, are those who can see it coming, and choose to stay kind, not because it's easy, but because it's real.